The Outlanders Journey. Tier 1, Level 1. Chapter 13. Arc. You all manage to duck into a cave for the night, just before a sudden and unexpected thunderstorm. Errol informs you that this is one of the orcs' possible hiding places, though at first glance you can already tell it's too small, barely able to fit more than maybe a dozen people. Still, you find black scorch marks indicating a fireplace, as well as grass beddings. The rain is splashing into the entryway of the cave, strong gusts of wind extinguishing whatever little fire you manage to light. Lightning cracks somewhere nearby, causing your feathers to stand, and the electrical heat hits you shortly afterward. The further north you've gone, the more inclement the weather has become. Brother Taida, facing away from the mouth of the cave, pulls out and sets down his maps again. The next possible location is here, he says, pointing at a spot marked with an X. You shine your magical light above the map. The location is further northwest, away from the forest line, heading towards the Emerald River. How long will you take? You ask. Another 2 days or so, says Brother Taida. This one will be especially tricky, as it is an underground cave system. It will be difficult to spot, so we will need to be precise in our navigation. He looks to Errol, who nods. Of course, he continues, it is possible we may run into them if they are out and about. There is a good chance this will happen if we get there during the day. We should be mindful of any movement or sounds. Okay, you say. Will the orcs be safe staying underground in this storm? Asks Errol. We've wondered that ourselves, says Brother Taida. This is why we wish to relocate them as quickly as possible before the worst of the rainy season begins. But, as I understand it, the orcs have navigated this cave system for generations. They would likely know to avoid areas prone to flooding or collapse. I see, she says. It's been awkward since Brother Taida shared what happened. The further along you've traveled, the more tremulous he's become, performing exaggerated prayers of penance to Saranre. You can tell he's been mentally preparing himself for what he knows will likely be a volatile interaction with the orcs. And you come to realize that you and Errol's primary purpose out here might be to protect him from death. You can't help but feel sorry for this man, not because he's blameless, but because you can easily see yourself being just as accidentally careless. But for him to be inadvertently responsible for the death of hundreds because he failed to check the military's gifts for the spider plague with a simple spell that even you know how to perform, you hope you're at least a little more mindful than he was. Despite your sympathy, you can't help but think he's a fool. Brother Taida rolls up the maps and prepares your late dinner. From his knapsack, he distributes a portion of pemmican to each of you. He bows his head and prays, squeezing his eyes shut as though it will be better to show his dedication to Saranre. For days, all you've had is pemmican, and it's lost all taste to you. Somehow it's both bland and overly salted, chewy and brittle. The little chunks of raisins have gotten gummy and sour. Every night, you sleep with a grumbling stomach, and you don't know if it's due to hunger or if it's some disease that Brother Taida has laced in your food. Brother Taida, you say, unrolling your bedroll. It's damp and smells moldy from the rain. Yes, Brother Ark? Do we know how they will react when they see you again? Brother Taida chews methodically. He swallows. I may very well die, and I cannot blame them if they choose to kill me. All I can hope for now is their safety and survival, and perhaps my own salvation in the eyes of the Everlight. Even Errol, who was initially trying to defend him, has gone quiet. She's distanced herself physically from him. She quietly finishes the last of her pemmican, eyes fixed to the ground, and wipes her hands clean. She also begins to unroll her sleeping mat. Of all the supplies you have on you, 2 of the large packs are reserved for the orcs. Rations, medicine, tools, potions of healing, blankets, coats. Due to their weight, Errol and Brother Taida have been the ones carrying them. I hope you don't mind, you say, but would it be okay if I check the supplies? Errol glances at you. Brother Taida stops chewing. He sighs. Yes, of course. I would verify too if I were in your shoes. Where did you source these items? You ask. They are directly from the temple. Ethel has hand-washed the clothing several times in hot water to be safe, but please, by all means, feel free to double-check again. You scoot up to the packs, opening the flap and peering inside. It's neatly organized, and you find folded blankets filled to the brim in one and more wrapped pemmican in the other. The smell of dried venison wafts out of the pack, a scent you've come to despise. Errol scoots up next to you. Once you are done checking, try to get some sleep, says Brother Tida. Any rest we get is vital. He slips into his bedroll, turning away from your light. You nod. Thanks, Brother Tida. Good night. No, thank you. Good night, Brother Ark. Good night, Sister Errol. Good night, Errol mumbles. You carefully pull each item out, memorizing the order that everything was packed. Whoever did it placed everything in mindfully and caringly. Cases of healing potions in between layers of blankets, the pemmican individually wrapped in parchment to prevent molding and contamination. Perhaps you are wrong for being so distrustful. I secretly checked them last night too, whispers Errol. I also purified the food. Oh, you did? You glance at her. There's guilt in her eyes. She nods, but you should check again just to be sure. She hands you her prayer book and holy symbol. Okay. You flip it to the page for detect poison and disease, and, pulling the holy symbol to your chest, you begin to chant the incantation. At this point, you've gotten pretty good at the recitation, and you have at least half of the words memorized. There's a surprising amount of repetition shared by every ritual spell. 10 minutes later, you close the ritual. We pray in the name of your everlasting fire. Provide us the blessings of your magic. You open your eyes and peer around at every item, lifting it in your hands and turning it over. None of them are glowing with poison or disease, thankfully. Each one you finish scrutinizing, you offer back to Errol, who slips it carefully into the pack. Eri, you say, unfolding one of the blankets and examining every corner. You've been really quiet lately. Quieter than usual. Do you want to talk about it? She chuckles. You can probably guess. Are you okay? She gingerly refolds the blanket you hand her. She sighs. I've been thinking about High Priestess Vavina a lot. Oh, you miss her, don't you? She nods. She's pretty amazing, isn't she? She nods again. I haven't told you how High Priestess Vavina became the High Priestess, have I? You shake your head. Did you know that everything you experienced in the Temple of Salvation was because of her? Every ritual, every bit of decor or furnishing, everything we now consider to be essential scriptures of the religion, all of that came to be because of High Priestess Vavina. I thought you said this was an ancient religion. It is, she says. But before she came along, there was no temple. It was nothing more than rubble, some forgotten relic. She ran away from her home in Harrington to escape an arranged marriage, and she wound up lost in the forest. She stumbled into the ruins during a storm, I guess kind of like us right now. Everything was overgrown, but there was this one spot that was untouched. She went over to that spot, and it was dry and strangely warm. She sat down, and all of a sudden, she saw this grand vision of the temple in its prime, when it was built by the previous champion. She could see the altar, the gardens, the acolytes, the prayers, the guests, the buildings, everything. And instead of questioning why such a vision came to her, she set off and traveled across the land. She scaled the mountains and met the Mystrians, and she learned that they've been preserving all of the Everlight's ancient texts for generations, waiting for someone like her. She brought this knowledge back to Harrington and gathered builders and forgers to reconstruct the temple. She went to almost every region of the INA and formed alliances so that she could receive food and supplies, and, in return, she would offer free shelter and food to anyone of any origin who was in need. She did all of this on her own, and now that temple is a beacon of hope, standing tall at the intersection of all the nations. She did all of that single-handedly. That's amazing, you say. You should be proud to be a part of this. You get to the pemmican, which you carefully unwrap and check at every angle. So far, nothing has been tainted. You glance at Errol, who has draped one of the blankets around her shoulders as she waits for you. Brother Tida is already asleep, restlessly tossing and turning as if experiencing a nightmare. "I am proud," she says. "It's truly an honor for me to even have lived in her presence. But even she wasn't the chosen. She did so much for the Everlight, for so many people, and it still wasn't enough. She was given a blessing, but not the blessing." "Oh," you say. She snorts to herself, shaking her head. "I told myself when I was a child that I would be happy if I could just serve by her side for the rest of my life. She raised me and taught me everything I know. I owe her my entire life. I just wanted her to guide me. But then she told me that I would surpass her one day, and I didn't understand what she meant. I still don't know. And now, here I am, out in the middle of nowhere, trying to resolve something that is so far beyond anything I can reasonably do." She glances at Brother Tida and begins to whisper, "If High Priestess Vavina made a mistake with Brother Tida, then who's to say she didn't make the same mistake with me? And if Brother Tida can cause the death of hundreds due to simple carelessness, then why would anyone trust me to do better?" "Ari," you say, "you're the most dutiful person I've ever met. You do everything so diligently. I can't think of anyone better than you." She blinks rapidly, holding back tears. "I just don't want to mess up. I don't want to get in your way." "My way? You're the chosen. Every day, I see you grow more comfortable with the new abilities you have. It's like you were born with them." No. You pick up Errol's prayer book. "I still have to read this to cast the spells. You know them all by heart. You've noticed that she's been treating you differently ever since you were contacted by Saranre. She's positioned herself as subservient to you now, because you've stolen something that was meant for her." She scoffs. "And yet, I can't cast most of them out here. Ever since I left the temple, most of my spells haven't been working." Her voice cracks. Her breathing is shaky. "I can't heal anymore. The most basic but important skill I should have. I can't even do that." "Ari," you say, dropping the pemmican. You lean into her and pull her head into your chest. "You'll figure it out again. It's not a big deal, really." Brother Tida groans and smacks his lips. "Sorry," says Errol. "I'm just burdening you with my problems." She pulls away, wiping her tears. "Let's finish and get some sleep?" "Are you sure?" "What are you supposed to do in a situation in which you are the cause of her problems?" She nods. "Just tell me how I can support you." "We'll support each other." She forces a laugh. "Okay," she says. You finish the last of the supplies, finding nothing tainted. Either Brother Tida has kept his word and made sure everything was clean, or Errol already scrupulously purified everything on her own last night while you were asleep. She thinks she's useless, but she knows what she's doing. The two of you slip into your bedrolls, and you dismiss the light spell. The rain has soaked through your blankets, and your body is sticky and wet and cold. Outside, thunder continues to boom, the cave rumbling around you. "Good night, Ari," you say. "Try to get some sleep." "You too. Good night." Despite the discomfort, the exhaustion takes over almost immediately. "Saranre," you whisper, closing your eyes, forcing a prayer as you drift off. "Please watch over Errol. I don't know what will happen if or when we find the orcs, but please let her live. She has a whole journey ahead of her. And Brother Tida, I know he was a fool, and I know he's misused your name, but please forgive him and let him redeem himself. Protect them. Watch over them. Please." A calming warmth touches the top of your head. "Sleep," you hear. For the next couple of days, the journey remains as it has been. Boring, tense, and tiring. For miles, there is nothing interesting to look at, and your break time is spent only drinking water or eating more of the disgusting pemmican. It's one thing to be nervous for something anticipated and planned, like a performance or competition. It's something else to have no knowledge on what exactly to prepare for, only that it might be disastrous. According to the map, the orc's second possible location is anywhere between 3 and 20 miles away, depending on how accurate the marker is. At worst, you'll be in the right spot tomorrow. At best, you're already there. The atmosphere is even more stilted now, with each of you bracing yourselves for the moment of contact. As you take another water break, you suddenly see a bright light flash in the corner of your eye. On a cloudy day, it's even more apparent, hovering low on the ground and blinking behind the swaying grasses. You hear what sounds like a conversation, though it's too far away to understand. A dog barks. Brother Tida squints at the light source, and he begins rapidly packing up his water skin, hoisting the backpack over his head again. "Come," he says. "That might be one of the orcs' signals." "But why is it so bright?" asks Errol, getting to her feet. He pauses, still squinting at the light. His eyes go wide. "Oh no," he says. "It might be magical in nature." "What does that mean?" you say. "The orcs forbid magic. If that light is from a spell, it means the military may be actively searching this area. If that's the case, we must find a way to stop them." Things have, all at once, gotten even more dire than you initially thought. The three of you shuffle forward briskly, keeping your heads low. "Stay behind me," says Brother Tida. "If their lieutenant is here, I may be able to speak to them. He knows me personally." You're surprised to see him so proactive now, when he initially was hiding from the scout. He must have mentally prepared himself for this moment. It's hard to see through the dense grassland. If the soldiers are in camouflaged uniform, you might be running right into the middle of their battalion. Instead of the soldiers, though, the first thing you hear is a low growling. All of you freeze in place. A twig snaps nearby, and you hear crackling footsteps. In the distance, the light extinguishes. You hear whispers in, strangely, Sylvan. The voices sound like they're from children. "Wait," you whisper. But you're stopped by the sight of thick, white fur. A large creature raises itself above the tops of the grasses, piercing red eyes and flared nostrils sniffing the air. It bares its yellow teeth. You've never seen a wolf this big before. Errol grasps the hilt of her short sword, and she slowly slinks ahead of you, nudging you back at the same time. "This is Yarek's main direwolf," whispers Brother Tida. "I don't think the soldiers are here," you say. "I don't either." "Shh," says Errol. Very carefully, she unsheathes her weapon, holding a defensive position in front of both of you. Brother Tida reaches into his pockets, breaking off a small piece of pemmican. "Don't," you say. "You'll only lure it closer." The direwolf sniffs the air, and its eyes lock on to Brother Tida. As if recognizing him finally, its nostrils flare and its eyes go rabid. It leaps into the air. Brother Tida tosses the pemmican into the air, and it bounces off the direwolf. It pays the food no mind and pounces at him, its jaw opening for a bite. You and Errol react in the same moment. You hold your shield up protectively, and you shout for a sanctuary spell. A small fire erupts in front of Brother Tida, intended to spook the wolf away. Errol rushes in and rams herself into the leaping creature. The wolf lands away from Brother Tida, its teeth barely missing his neck. Now it looks enraged, and it barks angrily. Brother Tida's knees buckle, and he falls backward under the weight of his supplies. The wolf bends its hind legs and leaps up again. Brother Tida screams, and the wolf lands on top of him, shoving you aside onto the ground. It sinks its teeth deep into his forearm, pinning him down. Errol swings her blade, and she slices into its leg. The wolf yelps, and as its jaw goes slack, she kicks its snout away. She interposes herself in front of Brother Tida, eyes focused. The direwolf hops back a couple of steps, glaring at Errol and licking its chops. You stand and position yourself to its side, flanking the creature slightly. It seems to realize this and hold its position defensively, baring its teeth as drool drips from its mouth. With her sword still raised, Errol kneels down by Brother Taida, holding him steady as he screeches in agony. You notice a large chunk of flesh has been bitten off, mangled and dangling precariously. He's grabbing his arm and holding everything in place. A high-pitched whistle rings in your ears. The wolf turns tail and limps away. You take this moment to rush to Brother Taida. "Hold on," you say. "I got you." You begin the healing incantation, but Brother Taida shushes you. "You must save it. Don't use all of your spells so quickly." Heavy footfalls march towards you. Errol pulls herself to her feet again. Her sword is slightly tinged with the wolf's blood. She widens her feet to a defensive stance. "Out of the grasses, now," you hear in a deep, authoritative voice. Breathing through the pain, Brother Taida grabs your arm and struggles to stand upright. He's shaking. "Let me handle this first," he whispers. "I know this voice." He raises his head and in broken Sylvan he announces, "We come in peace." The footsteps stop. You can make out the shadow of a tall and muscular man, holding a giant axe in one hand. The direwolf stands to his right. "You," he says with a gravelly, low voice, seething with anger. The man points at Brother Taida. Brother Taida's eyes soften, and he lets out a deep exhale. "You are Yarek's son. I remember you. Do not speak his name." All of you recoil, and Brother Taida takes one step back, still propping himself up on your shoulder. He bows his head. "I am so sorry. Please forgive me." You hear more growling, now to your right. There's a second direwolf somewhere, but it hasn't emerged from the foliage yet. You scan the area for any signs. "You have the gall to show your face again, demon," says the man. "Tell me why I shouldn't cut your head off your shoulders now. It will be more fitting for you." Brother Taida's breathing is unsteady. He lowers himself to the ground, letting go of his injured arm, kneeling. He presses his head to the ground, shivering uncontrollably. "I beg of you, I have come to make right my grave sin, to atone for the suffering and deaths I have caused your people due to my naivety." The man takes another step closer, and you can now make out his face. Scarred, a large burn running down his neck, long chipped tusks protruding out of his lower lip. He narrows his eyes at Brother Taida. He hoists the axe over his shoulder, gripping it tightly. His piercing gaze shifts to Errol, and then down to you, and you instantly stiffen. "So you've fooled this Aarakocra to squawk on your behalf now?" "No," says Brother Taida. "This is Brother Ark, the chosen of the Everlight." "Any buffoon chosen by your deity holds no value to me." He is still glaring at you. "Speak up if you have any ability to think for yourself." You rise to your feet, arms raised in surrender. "I am a follower of the Everlight, that is true," you say. "But I am also of the Southern INA. I have no allegiance to the New Everlon soldiers who've attacked you." "The INA," says the man, scoffing. "Before the elves, your people betrayed our generations-long agreement. You are just as culpable as this monster." You don't know what he's talking about, but you bow. "I am sorry." He turns to Errol. "Drop your weapon if you truly come in peace." Errol glances at you, and you see the fear in her eyes. She's frozen stiff. It takes a moment for his command to register, but she complies, releasing her sword. It lands softly on top of the grasses. "I brought gifts for you," says Brother Taida, head still pressed to the ground. "Food, blankets, supplies. I have made sure they are safe for consumption this time." "You take us for fools," says the man. Behind the man, there is more shifting in the grasses, and you see two more individuals running up to him. One individual is just as tall and muscular. The other is very lanky in comparison. They stand at either side of him, and you see the slender one whisper into the man's ear and point at you. "I was foolish for bringing your supplies directly from the military," says Brother Taida. "Never in my life would I have imagined such things laced with the spider plague, and I did not do my due diligence in checking its contents. I naively believed they were intending to make peace with your people, and I carelessly caused so many preventable deaths. This time, I come with full certainty that these supplies are safe." The man raises an arm to the slender individual, telling him to step back. The individual complies. The man approaches Brother Tida, glaring at Errol as he walks past her. From up close, you see he's wearing thick hides, tainted with fresh blood. He stops within inches of Brother Tida. He lifts his axe and drops it to the ground, barely missing Brother Tida's head. It lands with a thud, sinking vertically into the dirt. "Get up and acknowledge me at my level, coward." Brother Tida nods. With great effort, he pushes himself up on one arm, stumbling as he straightens up. He's breathing short, jagged breaths, his mouth hanging open. The man unrolls his right sleeve, and you see the purple web-like scars of the disease protruding out of his skin like veins. "I want you to see what you've done to us. I am a survivor." Brother Tida nods, staring at it. "Yes, I see." "This is the good you have done. I know I have failed you beyond forgiveness." The man snorts. "Forgiveness? That is all you care about? Your own repentance?" He doesn't give Brother Tida a chance to answer before he turns to you. "Explain why you are with him." Something catches in your throat. His gaze seems to cut deep into your heart, seeing all the mistakes you've ever made in your life. "I was rescued not long ago by followers of the Everlight," you say. You motion to Errol. "Before this, I was close friends with Errol over there. She saved my life." You reach your hand out to him. "I have healing abilities for your wounds." "Do not touch me with your witchcraft," he says. "We have had spider plague outbreaks before in the INA. The scar, if left untreated, can damage your nerves, and you can lose your arm if you don't treat it soon." He glares at you. "I am aware." You can see his arm trembling. "I can heal your arm if you'd like. If you want us gone, that's fine. But let me at least heal you." Slowly approaching are the two individuals, who you suddenly realize are furbolgs. You've never seen furbolgs out of the forest before. Why are they here, and why are they with the orcs? You glance at Errol, who stares at them with just as much confusion. "May I touch your arm?" you say. The man's eyes are starting to waver a bit. He examines your face, searching for any signs of malice. He sighs and offers the arm to you. You touch the scar, rough and hardened like tree bark. You can tell he's trying to hold it steady for you, but it's like he's unable to control the shaking. You close your eyes, chanting softly the healing incantation. A hand, invisible and almost incorporeal, grasps yours, and as you release your magic, there is a burst of fire, more potent than what you'd normally expect. The skin softens, the scar tissue sloughing off. The man pulls his arm away, clenching and unclenching his fist repeatedly. He narrows his eyes at you. The lanky furbolg has run up to the man again, though he is staring directly at you. To your surprise, he is wearing New Everlon travel clothing, a loose button-up shirt with gray trousers and leather boots, exactly like the travelers on the road. He whispers in the man's ear, and you hear the words, "Entry into the border." "Please," you say, "if there's anything you need from us, we will do our best to provide it." Brother Tida nods. "I know I have badly represented the teachings of the Everlight, so please punish me. But I beg you to think of your people, your father." "I warn you, do not speak of my father again." The man points his finger, pressing hard against Brother Tida's forehead until his nail breaks the skin. A small trickle of blood runs down Brother Tida's face. He winces and bows his head. "Please, forgive me. I meant no disrespect." The man turns to Errol, staring intently at her. "Bring over the supplies." She obediently lowers her head as she shuffles to the backpacks by Brother Tida's feet. She carries both over with great effort, and as you bend down to help her, the man grabs your wing in the spot of your injury. The pain shoots down your spine, and you stand paralyzed. "Do not move unless you are told so," says the man. "I'm sorry," you mutter. Errol drops the backpack down and looks up at him with pleading eyes. The man kicks the backpack, spilling out the blankets, food, utensils, and other tools. He stares at them and scoffs. "What do you intend to gain by coming here? What good are these measly supplies? Have you no dignity? No respect?" "Please," says Brother Tidal. "Whatever aid you need, let us provide it. I know that, because of my doing, you have suffered greatly. Please let me help your people survive the winter." There is, you realize, conflict in the man's expression. Despite the confidence of his words, his eyes are darting around at all of you. The Furbolg whispers into his ear again, and you watch as he listens with surprising patience. "If you need help getting into the INA, I can do that for you," you say. The lanky Furbolg's eyes light up instantly. "We can heal, and all of us are INA citizens. We can bring you in if you need a place for the winter." The man raises his arm again, asking for space, and the Furbolg takes a step back. "It is not up to me," he says. He looks to you. "If you wish to help us, then there is something you can do, but I will need the judgment of the others." He whistles at the white direwolf, pointing out and to his right. Instantly, the wolf bolts away. In the distance, the second direwolf, who's remained hidden this entire time, sprints after the first. The man lifts his axe over his shoulder. "I have sent for the others to come. Your fate will be decided by them. Now hand over your weapons."